Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanantari Jamuna Tira Vanantari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe, Radha. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe, Radha, Madhava Radha. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande, Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satya Sri Simad, His Divine Grace, Shiraboy Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, ISKCON DBT Founder Charyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Samavata Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtana Ki, Brahmparaj Bhagavatam Ki, Jainitai Gaura Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavanscha Sri Rupam Sahagradatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tvam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Deshakanditam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, Let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and a loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Maha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukham karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinatadanam. Yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinatadanam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our daily Bhagavatam class. Today we continue reading from Canto number 2, chapter 1, entitled The First Step in God Realization. And today's text is 9, right? Yes. Parinistito api nairgunya uttama shloka lilaya grihita cheta rajarshe akyanam yad adhitavan parinistitopi nairgunya Uttamaslokalilaya Grihita Chetarajarshe Akyanam Yad Adhitavan Parinistitopi Nairgunya Uttamaslokalilaya Grihita Chetarajarshe Akyanam Yad Adhitavan Parinistitopi Nairgunya Uttamaslokalilaya Grihita Chetarajarse Akyanam Yad Adhitavan Parinistitopi Nairgunya Uttamaslokalilaya Grihita Chetarajarse Akyanam Yad Adhitavan
Parinistitopi Nairgunya
Uttamaslokalilaya
Grihita Chetarajarse Akyanam Yad Adhitavan
Akyanam Yad Adhitavan. One more. Parinistitopi Nairgunya Uttamaslokalilaya Grihita Chetarajarse Akyanam Yad Adhitavan Parinistitaha fully realized api in spite of Nairgunye in transcendence Uttama enlightened Shloka verse Lilaya by the pastimes Grihita being attracted Chetaha attention Rajarshe O saintly king Akyanam delineation Yat that Adhitavan I have studied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Kind of repeat after me. O saintly king.
O saintly king.
I was certainly situated. Perfectly in transcendence. Yet I was still attracted. By the delineation. Of the pastimes of the Lord. Who is described. By enlightened verses. Purport. The absolute truth is realized as the impersonal Brahman at the first instance by philosophical speculation, and later as the supersoul by further progress of transcendental knowledge. But if, by the grace of the Lord, an impersonalist is enlightened by the superior statements of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is also converted into a transcendental devotee of the personality of Godhead. With a poor fund of knowledge, we cannot adjust to the idea of the personality of the absolute truth. And the personal activities of the Lord are deplored by the less intelligent impersonalists. But reasons and arguments together with the transcendental process of approaching the absolute truth help even the staunch impersonalist to become attracted by the personal activities of the Lord. A person like Shukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activity. But when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. The Lord is transcendental, as are his activities. He is neither inactive nor impersonal. Translation again. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. So yesterday we were discussing a little bit about the subject matter of transcendence. Subject matter of transcendence deals with elevated consciousness. Elevated consciousness beyond the material realm. In a similar way that on the material platform, there are so many attractions in the material world, so many different levels of attraction. Similarly, on the transcendental level, there are different degrees of attraction as well. Generally, those who are fortunate to come to the transcendental platform, at least they realize that there is something beyond the material body. And there is a kind of ananda, or happiness, that one experiences. A happiness that brings one beyond the dualities of the material world. That's described in the Bhagavad Gita as being the level of Brahmananda. Yeah, Brahmananda. What is that verse? Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma. One's mind becomes fully satisfied, actually not fully satisfied, compared to what one experiences on the material platform. One is no longer affected by the dualities. Brahma bhuta prasanatma nasochati nakanchati. So Bhagavatam especially deals with these different levels of transcendence. And it is especially the specialty of the Vaishnavas, or Vaishnavacharyas, and of course Srila Prabhupada makes reference to Srila Jiva Goswami, because it is amongst all of the Goswamis in Vrindavan, Srila Jiva Goswami stands out as being that personality who has very elaborately described and established by logic and argument how the Srimad Bhagavatam is a topmost of transcendental literatures, primarily and mainly because it is introducing us to the personal aspect or personal dimension of the concept of the absolute truth. And that is, there are many verses in the Bhagavatam that are supporting this statement. Vedanti tat tattvavidam tattvam yas jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabjate. Yeah. So from the level of Brahman realization, it is only when we come in contact with the Bhagavatam that we can begin to understand that there are higher levels than the Brahman or impersonal level of realization. And Shukadeva Goswami is one of many examples. We also, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there are many other examples as well. And I think Prabhupada makes this point in a few places also, how we see many examples of transcendentalists who were impersonal, who become attracted to the personal descriptions and personal features, personal attributes, personal qualities and pastimes of the Absolute, namely in the personality of Krishna. There are much more personalities who go from the level of impersonal Brahman to the personal level. Whereas we don't hear, once we reach that level, we generally don't come back. In the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, there is, of course, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a very staunch impersonalist and who had so many followers as well, and who, as we know, nicely described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, upon meeting Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was very, quite young compared to him. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was like the age of at least his father. And feeling compassion upon such a young sannyasi, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with his noble heart, wanted to help him and protect him, and started to explain to him about Vedanta. So this is also confirmed, of course, in the Brahma Samhita. Vedeshu dolabam adolabam atma bhaktam. That one can try to learn about Vedic knowledge, one can try to learn about the absolute truth for hundreds and thousands of years actually, but by our mere mental efforts, by our limited material mind, limited material intelligence, we can never comprehend or understand the essence actually of the Vedic knowledge. And of course, one of the reasons is that it is a very confidential, as Krishna confirms also in the Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? And it can only be understood when one takes up, not by himself, but under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and in the good association of devotees as well, that one can begin to understand about these higher levels of transcendence. There's a nice example when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching. Of course, we know simply by reading any of his writings how it's like difficult to even understand one line because he was talking on such a high level. And so there was one couple. The wife was actually fully surrendered. She had become a devotee. And the husband was less, had not, let's say, fully become convinced. And once when he had visited and after the class was asking, like sometimes people do, they'll ask a question that is actually beyond, that they're not ready to understand. So he was asking some very confidential question in regards to Radha and Krishna pastimes. And the answer that was given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was that my request is that you spend a little bit of time in our ashram, and specifically he gave him one instruction, that you go and assist this particular devotee who is cleaning pots in the kitchen. So he did that, and this particular devotee, although he was doing a very simple, what we call menial service, but he was doing it in the proper mood, in the proper mentality. He was doing it out of, these are Krishna's pots. Everything is Krishna's, and therefore he was very meticulously, very nicely, with love and devotion. And by associating with that devotee, that he was like an intellectual person, so he could understand why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had sent him there. That we cannot learn about bhakti or devotion simply intellectually. We must have that great fortune of coming in contact with those who are in that mood and mentality, those who actually have developed. It is a question of bhava, not simply sentimental feelings. Krishna consciousness is actually a combination of both sentiment and philosophy. where there needs to be a proper balance of both. So after spending some time in the association of that particular devotee, then he could understand, and therefore he stopped asking questions that he was not ready to properly understand. So that is the special feature, attractive feature of bhakti or devotional service, which is naturally bringing transcendentalists to a very very elevated platform. In the example of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he got the good association of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we all know that he became completely surrendered. He became a Vaishnava, and he became so, he was preaching about liberation before, isn't it? That's the aim of impersonalists. They want to, their aim is mukti, liberation from the material world, through the process of merging, of becoming one, impersonalist understanding. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became so convinced that he went a little bit to one extreme, because whenever he would find the word mukti in the literatures, he wanted to change the word mukti. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to correct him. Shastra is Shastra. Mukti has to be properly understood in its proper context. So you can't start, because generally people have a wrong or misconception about mukti. And that's also nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, that the devotee is not actually interested in mukti. Prabhupada gives the example that Lord Chaitanya would not be praying that let me again take birth again and again, but let me be engaged in your devotional service. So mukti, people who are after mukti don't want to take birth again. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed that I don't mind taking birth, but as long as I have an opportunity to be engaged in devotional activities, as long as I have the opportunity to get the good association of devotees. So in this way, actually, it's like the transcendental subject matter of devotion is a very very special and very unique level, which is not so easily attainable. Even though those of us all of us who have come in contact with the process of bhakti, we, in the initial stage, we know about bhakti more like theoretically. But to actually experience it, generally takes some time. It takes time because of the different levels of contamination that are there. And that, of course, is a whole science, the whole science of bhakti or science of devotional service, which is which is the specialty actually of Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas, not only are they interested in, let's say, general topic of spirituality. Vaishnavas are especially attracted and focus primarily on this aspect of devotion or bhakti, naturally, directly in relation with Krishna. And it is only such literatures as the Srimad Bhagavatam that give us that that opportunity to know about this dimension of bhakti. The verse we were reading just a few days ago is nicely explaining that also, actually. Yes. Okay. I'll just read the verse again here. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Yeah. So any comments or thoughts on this? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, thank you for the class. As we know that there are three types of transcendentalists, namely the Jnani, the Yogi, and Bhaktas. So for the Jnanis, their destination is the impersonal Brahman, and for the Bhaktas, their destination is spiritual world, Vaikuntha. And what about the Yogi who is worshipping the Paramatma feature? What is their destination? Or can we categorize them in the along with the Bhakta, because we know that Paramatma has feature.
Yes.
Yeah, so what about their destination? And all these days I was wondering how they worship the Paramatma.
How they worship the Paramatma.
Yeah, and what is their destination?
There is that verse which is describing Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashanta Krishna Bhakta Niskama Ataiva Shanta. So in that verse, Prabhupada explains how these three categories that you mentioned, Bhukti means materialists, Mukti, the Jnanis who are after Mukti or liberation, and then Yogis, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi. Generally, Yogis are after Siddhis. However, Prabhupada does explain that even those who are impersonalists, if they are sincere, then they can gradually rise above the level of impersonalism, come to the level of Paramatma realization within the heart, and eventually beyond that as well, they can come to the level of pure bhakti. So generally, depending on the consciousness of a particular yogi, yogis, as you rightly mentioned, if they're fortunate, they will come to the level of realizing the presence of Paramatma, and so they can have that level of the Paramatma is the four-handed form of the Lord, so they can be promoted to the spiritual world, where the four-handed form of the Lord is present, Narayana form. As long as they are not primarily after cities, which is often the case. So, majority of living entities, majority of planets in the spiritual sky, we know, are for devotees who have that level of realization. The four-handed form of the Lord, the Paramatma feature of the Lord. And it is, we come to know from Brahma Samhita and Srimad Bhagavatam and similar literatures that of all of the planets within the spiritual world, there is only one planet where Krishna is known in his original transcendental form of Shamashundar, where God is known in his original transcendental form. So it means that even amongst transcendentalists who are beyond the level of impersonalism, very, very few come to that level of Krishna realization, isn't it? So there is bhakti. We know that's also nicely and very elaborately presented in the Nectar of Devotion. I mean, our Goswamis of Vrindavan, they spent their whole life discussing and explaining the whole science of bhakti, devotional service, which is nicely summarized, of course, by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. So there are many, the whole science of rasa, isn't it? So rasa is spiritual rasa. At the lower level is where the majority of living entities who have become liberated are situated in one of the Vaikuntha planets. And it's a little bit like, unless an impersonalist comes in contact with a devotee, he's going to be stuck on the impersonal platform. Similarly, one who has been introduced to the level of bhakti, if one is not introduced to the topmost level, then one will remain on the lower level of rasa, and will be, of course, completely satisfied, because everyone in anywhere in the spiritual world, one is fully happy and satisfied. Prabhupada does explain that even in Vaikuntha, if one is situated on one of the 1,000, unlimited planets, Vaikuntha planets, if one comes in contact with a devotee who has been awakened to the higher levels of bhakti, then he may be promoted also to Krishna Loka. So, so it's like this: to be elevated beyond the material sphere and to come to know transcendental subject matters is very rare. And amongst those who practice spirituality, to be elevated to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, anywhere, is also very rare. But to be elevated to Krishna's abode, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, is extremely rare. So yogis who are sincerely practicing, they will be elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, and those who are fortunate to come in contact with Vaishnava yogis, devotees are also yogis, Vaishnava yogis, then they'll have the opportunity to be elevated to Goloka. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Thanks for your nice class, Maharaj. I was contemplating upon these two words, Brahma Bhuta and Brahmananda. Slight correction.
Brahmabhuta and Brahmananda.
Yes.
Yes.
How
And what was your meditation? you were
they-
contemplating.
Both are same or slightly different levels of realization?
No, Brahmabhuta platform is the platform where one experiences Brahmananda. Because he is no longer affected or disturbed by the, hankering and lamentation. Nasociti nekansiti. Right? Brahmabhuta platform is the level of Brahmananda. But we know, as devotees, that there is a higher level, isn't it?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, the Brahmananda, then there is Premananda.
Yeah, one more example that also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried. The Brahmananda Bharati, the Mayavadi, he became converted also.
Many people, many during the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of their coming in contact with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of coming in contact with the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they also became Vaishnavas. Yeah. I think Shivananda had your hand up. No, eh? Okay. Maybe you're just scratching. Yeah. A Telugu question being transformed in English.
During Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime,
Yeah.
Haridas Thakur came as Brahma's incarnation. When he is here, who is in Brahmaloka?
It's like if you step out of your house doesn't crumble. The time factor in Brahmaloka and the time factor here is completely different. So if you leave your house for thousands of years, when you come back, you won't have a house, or not even thousands of years. So Brahma was absent for a short time. That's one way of understanding it. The other way of understanding it is that sometimes we hear of like different devotees are personified so and so. So it means they imbibe the mood and the quality of such personalities. So it's just like Indra also left, Indra, Prabhupada explains how he was cursed and he had to take the body of a hog for some time. Is it Indra?
Yeah.
Yeah, Indra. Yeah, and Brahma came to try and tell him, listen, come back to your post. And so, in other words, just like a king, he's not, he has so many responsibilities, but he's not alone. The Lord Brahma, even if he steps out of the house or steps out of Brahmaloka for maybe a fraction of a second, time-wise, then it's not a problem. Yeah.
We see in India, especially, there are many transcendentalists who are were not coming in for sampradaya. They are all in impersonalist only.
Yeah.
Why do you so because here we see clearly that Lord, we can understand Lord in the three feature and the highest feature. By reading Srila Prabhupada books, we got this understanding. But generally, like why they are in vast majority, like if you see outside, many people are Mayavadi only.
Yes, they haven't read Prabhupada's books yet. No, it's true. It's like question is, why is it that the vast majority of people are impersonalists? In India, where spirituality is very prominent compared, let's say, to other countries, that historically that has always been India, Bharatvarsha, and that's why in the Shastra, India or Bharatvarsha is glorified as being a very special place where the Lord performs so many pastimes, etc. So why is it that majority of people who are practicing spiritual life are impersonalists? Well, it's part of the karma that we all, why is it that it's taken us so many years to become devotees? Why is it that some of our devotees, probably not many, but were born in devotee families? And so every single living entity is going through his journey, the journey of life, and therefore they are fortunate in that they are rising above the material concept of life, and in due course of time, as they get an opportunity to come in contact with devotees, and that's why those who are devotees, Vaishnavas, understand the importance of preaching, of distributing the knowledge, book distribution, all these things, to give more and more people an opportunity. So it's a question of each individual has is going through his process, so to speak, of gradually becoming freed from lower levels of consciousness. Okay, clock is in. So we can end this morning. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaura Premanande.
Jai.